We're now being joined by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Alhaji Garba Shehu. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much, Maupi.
We want to believe that preparations for inauguration come May 29 are in full gear. Do you want to bring us up to speed?
They are already ongoing.
Yeah.
We have seen the religious services on Friday at the National Mosque, Sunday at the National Cathedral. So those ones have taken place. The wife of the president has undertaken a major conference on the affairs of women in the country. Today, the focus will be on youth and young people. Today is the National Children's Day, so the young people of the country will be in focus. And
we're expecting a speech from the president, isn't that right?
The president will be represented by the Minister of FCT at the Eagle Square, where the broadcast will be read.
For the children?
Yes. So therefore, as you would have also in the state capitals, and you know this is how it has always been. And then we look forward to the swearing in on Wednesday. Of course.
Doesn't it take away from it? I mean, in the sense that it's Children's Day. Shouldn't they hear from the president as well?
Yeah, that's the president's message will be read to them. So that's it. Yes.
The president is reserving his voice for Inauguration Day?
No, not that. But as I said, when you are dealing with the FCT,
yes.
You just have to take him as the equivalent of a governor in the absence of one. If
I believe so.
In other capitals, the governors are out there doing, these things. So therefore, somebody has to do for the FCT.
The children residents. Of the FCT.
So this is it.
That's different. But we assumed there was supposed to be a national broadcast from the president to the children of Nigeria.
There will be a national broadcast by the president, read on his behalf by the FCT minister. This is what's going to happen.
I see. Okay. That said, what should we be looking forward to in the president's speech come May 29? We do know that for May 29, 2015, a huge chunk of the president's speech was dedicated to security, which was a challenge then and is still a challenge today, even though it's taken on a different face. Some of the faces of 2015 still remain, but we also have like a new dimension. For instance, banditry. It was part of the security legs, but now it's mentioned every now and then. What we're talking about. What should we be expecting? What can Nigerians look forward to on the president's speech come May 29?
The president has said in the course of the campaign, in the run-up to the 2019 election, that he is convinced that his identification of the three key problems of the country, mainly issues of national security, the economy, and corruption, was correct then and still remained correct. And so therefore, you would expect that the president would report to the nation on how far he has come on all of these elements and what he wants to do in the next level. You mentioned security, which you said was an issue then and now, and I'm happy that also there is a realization that it's a shifting ground, because when the president came in 2015, the big issue was Boko Haram. Boko Haram has faded away. And it's on the way out. But new challenges have arisen. You have mentioned banditry and kidnapping. And these ones are being tackled. Recent successes have been recorded. Look at what the police, for instance, is doing. The Operation Pop Adder that they launched. Pop Adder has netted in more than 160 suspected, kidnappers and bandits. They have recovered huge quantities of weapons, guns, surprisingly, locally made semi-automatic weapons, revolvers that have multiple cartridges, locally made, Anambra, Plateau, one other state. So
that's definitely an industry we haven't tapped into as a country. But the bandits have found it's found a market for you. You laugh, but I mean that that shows that there is capacity locally here to make such weapons.
I believe in gun control myself. I don't believe that guns should be manufactured and offered for sale. That's why we're in trouble, because guns, you can't use them if you don't have.
Yes, guns should be, I mean,
so therefore...
Don't get me wrong now. I mean, unless, of course, the Nigerian government comes up with another another law or another decree or another legislation, what we have is what we have. But we do know that the state is supposed to have the capacity, the sole capacity for violence. And oftentimes, a lot of the weapons we have here are imported. We patronize other countries for this weapon. So my talk is that we haven't patronized the people who can make them locally. And the bandits seem to have, you know, given those ones job to do.
Well, thank you for the ideas. I don't know if you ask me. I know that arrests have been made. I have mentioned 2 states, Anambra, Plateau. Zamfara is the one I missed. And maybe it might turn out that you know, the police might turn over those suspects to the Chamber of Commerce so that they can see how they can industrialize and set up our own, you know, defense industrial complex. We have yearned for that for a long time. But on a more serious note, I have said that, you know, there is a lot that is going on, and I think that the police, the army, the Air Force, and the Navy, they are now being more proactive. They are pushing. I've just seen pictures in the introductory part of the program now. They're doing more, and they are now talking about it. Police operations, this puff adder that I mentioned, you can see that, you know, success has been realized in many theaters of this crisis. And it's being launched now all across the Federation, because each state command is taking their turn to now launch and key into the process. So we're getting somewhere, and in a matter of time, these two will pass. We are not oblivious of the fact that new challenges will manifest security-wise, and it is now that the government will be judged by the response, nature of response that it puts forward.
I want to take you up on some of the things you have said. You said that Boko Haram is fading away, but then there are questions as to, you know, is it really fading, or is it just going to be on the down low? There are questions as to what the status of terrorists and terrorism in Nigeria is going to be. In the sense that we do know that, yes, no local government per se is under the siege of Boko Haram. Yes. But we're still aware that communities where perhaps it's just around the local government headquarters that people can stay without any fear. They are still very afraid to go to the villages and inhabit those places because they claim that Boko Haram terrorists are there, or they fear that they might still be attacked. So there is still that palpable fear. The IDP camps are still heavily populated by those who have been displaced and who have refused to go home for fear of security. And here and there, every now and again, you will get, you know, attacks by Boko Haram. Has terrorism come to stay, or are we really looking forward to a time when we can eradicate it, so to speak?
Well, I can't promise you that Boko Haram will or will not be eradicated, but it's an ongoing challenge globally. Even in the more advanced countries, more weaponized nations, it's still a challenge. What the point we're making is that the attacks you just cited now are still a far cry from the size, the enormity of those attacks that we had seen in the past. They have been greatly minimized, and they are being pushed further away from, you know, the national population. Of course, you know, I had mentioned this thing about cheap availability of weapons in the country and across borders. And as it is now, our security services are coming to terms with the fact that that is one area they have to tackle. The source of weapons whether locally manufactured or brought from abroad, has to be tackled. Otherwise, it's like oxygen to crime. These seizures that we just mentioned of thousands of ammunition and AK-47s and all of that, those people, they will replenish because these things are easily available. So this is the new thinking now. So let's go to the source of the weapons. As I said, government has identified local manufacturers. They seized the people and a lot of weapons, and we don't know the next steps that would follow. But government is also internationalizing this campaign. The IG of police, who has worked with the Interpol, with all of the international connections that come with that, is putting them to good effect, and we're trying to see how can we stop. We're getting support from our neighbors so that we tackle, the supply side of the weapons from outside, and we tackle what is happening inside. So some of these things from previous experience in law enforcement in the country, in local communities where you have an escalation of armed robbery. They had gone to those communities and they had seized weapons, and following seizures, you see a decline, in robbery operations or activities in those areas. But as I said, it is something that they'll go and buy more, and then they will continue. So it's a serious national problem, and it has to be tackled, and it's being tackled in that way.
Okay. So let us talk about one of the things that we'll be looking forward, which may define this incoming administration's success or otherwise, which is its relationship with the legislature. Only recently, the president was saying that he wasn't happy about his relationship with the 8th Assembly, and he's looking forward to a better relationship with the 9th Assembly. First and foremost, from your perspective, from your angle, what do you think informed the relationship breakdown, a good relationship vibe that it ought to have, received with the 8th Assembly? What was responsible for it?
If you allow me to guess, I would say that I think that the leadership of the parliament in the 8th National Assembly had misconstrued their own leadership position in agenda setting for the nation. From our own understanding, from our own reading of the Constitution, it's clear that the executive arm of the government is the country's leader. The executive arm of the government would set priorities based on an understanding of the national priorities, and then go to parliament and seek approval. That is not to say that the parliament cannot change, alter, or decline to give us approval. Take, for instance, the national budget. The iconic delay experienced 2018 of 7 months, National Assembly holding on, that's good enough for the Guinness Book of Records. And the president has lamented.
The National Assembly, is quoted as saying that they were not solely responsible. The president is on tape as having told his ministers to go and defend their budgets before the National Assembly committees. It was seen that there was also a lot of lackadaisical, well, for want of a better word, from the executive as well, with the budget that they had presented to the legislature.
Well, I think that what happened was, what happens usually is that once the president reads the budget draft and presents to the parliament, at that time his job is done, and it was not him but the parliament to drive the process. Don't forget that under our constitution, the parliament has the power of arrest. They can summon people where they fail to turn. They can subpoena people. If they fail to turn up, parliament can order for arrest. And arrests have been made in the past. And so therefore, I think that that is simply a lame excuse, pushing the buck to the executive. Now that we are having an incoming leadership that is coming, that is APC, that is willing to be on the same page with the executive. They're talking about ultimata, that we will do budget in 3 months from the day of presentation. We are committed to reverting to January, December, calendar. And so therefore, that is to tell you that it can be done if the willingness was there to do it.
Well, you have pointed to budget as the only, the only example of where you experienced some rough edges with the legislature.
No, not only.
The legislature can count perhaps a lot more. They talk about the leadership of the National Assembly, especially the Senate, being persecuted in their own terms. For instance, the Senate President Bukola Saraki was in the dock of the CCT, which says it is under executive powers to prosecute him over things that eventually they found that there was actually no case against him. They point to the fact that even some of the bills which you bring forward, executive bills, are vetoed by the president after a lot of work must have already been done on them, sometimes for no reason at all. I mean, the reasons look like they just want to be refused. That's what they look like. They point to a number of other things, but how do you respond to some of this, should I say, charges against the executive?
Well, the thing is that Maupe, as it is now, if EFCC should come into this building now and to say that they have come for Maupe, and then they force their way in and they take you away, people will laugh. Because it's laughable, because there is absolutely no basis for any such action. If there is no wrongdoing on the part of anyone, EFCC cannot, there is no security agency that can justify any such action. In any case, so if it is known, or it was known to them that this was to persecute me as an individual or someone else as an individual, can they make the distinction? Can they draw a line between self and the nation? Is it then the right thing to punish the country by holding on to all of these things and stopping meaningful projects or programs that are beneficial to 200 million people? So I would have thought that really, if the conviction was there, they believed that it was a persecution of person, then it shouldn't be turned into the persecution of the whole.
Let's take some questions from my colleagues in Lagos.
Mr. Shehu, I mean, speaking about this same executive and the National Assembly's relationship, the Senate says that compared to any other Senate, that in fact they have passed the highest number of bills, that's this 8th Assembly. Senate says for them, they've got 306 bills that have been passed, and the highest was by the 5th Senate, which passed, I think, just a little over 130 or 135. But now, they also say in spite of all of these bills, but the president has rejected the highest number of bills by any president, they say, 47, and this was several accounts, even as at yesterday. So how do we explain that 47 bills not assented to by the president?
The president will not decline to sign any bills whimsically. On each count that the president has declined assent to bills, he has given reasons, largely, mostly constitutional, conflicts or incidents that he has tried to avoid. And in fairness to them, on some of the cases, they had gone back and done the needful. Look at the PIB, for instance, the Petroleum Industry Bill, which has made substantial progress in the National Assembly and may possibly be passed all over again and presented to the president for his assent. They looked at all of the observations, and it wasn't as if the president was doing this in order to just to snub or spawn the parliament. They reasoned with him and said, okay, so let's see what he's saying. and they looked at and made corrections. They have returned some of these things. You talked about numbers. Well, congratulations to them for such a large number. This should energize a debate on quantity and quality. I'm not saying that the parliament is not doing bills that are qualitative. I'm saying that I am also aware that there are some proposed legislations, or amendments to constitution or laws, existing laws, that are very critical to some of the priority areas of the administration. I'm talking about, say, the anti-corruption area, for instance. I believe that there are times when the parliament pretended as if they didn't understand the president.
April, 30th of April 2019, and as a matter of fact, the 6th of February 2018, they had about 41 bills that were passed to the president for his assent, but out of which we had just a couple of them, as a matter of fact, 10 of them were administered, and then the president made remarks on those ones. What about the remaining? Does it give you a sense that the president is truly in line or in tandem with what the legislators are thinking, especially when you think about bills like the electoral amendment bill that the president didn't sign?
Okay, let me say that the president is very methodical in his dealing with matters such as this one. A president could sit in that powerful office and assume or behave as if he knows it all. And I think that in this country, we have had such presidents. But President Buhari is different because whenever this comes for signature, the president would ask that a long list of stakeholders be drawn up, and each stakeholder, take for instance the minimum wage bill, which he signed. Of course, before the signature, already, the labor groups were saying, sign now, Mr. President, sign, and no, but no. We have to, each stakeholder were identified, ministers in all of the ministries, including, arms that he does not even control, judiciary and all of that. They must sign on. So by the time all of these things are put together, they come back to him. It takes time. Sometimes deadlines are issued and reissued. However, the point is that at the end of it, a thorough job is done, that the president does not sign stupid documents. And that is important for this country.
Just confirming now, is the president still signing the budget today?
He is signing at 11 o'clock this morning.
Okay, so that's definitely something that we can expect. It is made. The National Assembly did pass the budget.
Yes.
The 8th National Assembly passed it before the left.
And you see, with the budget,
yes,
you had to go back, especially given experiences that he had, sadly, the matters of budget padding and all of that. Or ministers looking at the budget and screaming that this is not my proposal, because the proposals had gone there, had gone in there as pigs and had come out as sausages. So the questions are asked. So is this what you want? Is this what you got? And of course, sometimes you have to give up some part, because the parliament is not a rubber stamp parliament. They would somehow get some things changed here and there. But there must be that consensus that yes, this is a budget that is operable. And then the president will sign. And that's what he will do today.
Okay, we look forward to, and I do know that media houses will be at that signing ceremony. They would also be listening to what it is that the president has to say with regards to Children's Day. And the Nigerians, of course, will be anticipating the content of the president's speech come May 29. Well, we have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Today this morning. Garba Shehu is Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity.